Hello, this is Michael with Joto Imaging Supplies coming to you with another dye sublimation tutorial video. Today we are doing something a little bit more challenging. We're going to be sublimating onto glass, both frosted and clear glass. Many of you have said glass is a challenge for you. So let's talk about it and see what we can do to make that better. Before shooting this video, I did a few tests. One on frosted glass, as you can see here. This is actually a blue frosted glass, and one on clear glass. Pretty happy with the results, but there were some interesting things to learn from them. So the first thing that we noticed when dealing with glass is the difference between frosted and clear glass. In any case, regardless, when you're using glass, one of the problems that you're most likely to encounter is that multiple colors, fading colors, or gradient colors are less likely to be successful. This is always going to be true. You will find that it's a little easier with frosted than with clear, but the reality is that on glass, people have the greatest success with solid, dark colors. Things like logos work particularly well. Text can work really, really well. Anything that's going to be solid and dark and going to be able to really stand out against, particularly with clear glass, the nothing behind it in terms of some kind of white background. You'll see my examples. That's exactly what I did. I took a solid blue design. This is actually one of my wife's pieces, which she did just in blue. And as you can see, right, the solidness of this shows up here. However, what you'll also notice against this is where there are in fact small gaps in the original painting that show up as slightly less solid here. So what do? Well, the process is much easier in an oven than it is with an element press. And we're going to show you the oven and how to do it in the oven. It's always how I recommend it. And there are some variations in the way you can approach this, and we'll talk about those along the way. The first thing you're going to need, obviously, is the actual sublimatable product itself. And you'll notice I said sublimatable. You can't just grab glass off the shelf. This is pre-prepared. The clear glass may look like it's just standard clear glass, but there is in fact a dye sublimation coating built in to this glass. And so you'll get better results with something like this than you ever could from something else. The next thing you're going to need is, of course, your images. Now, these images have been prepared on our premium dye sublimation paper, which in 16 years of doing this, I swear by as the very best dye sublimation paper available on the market right now, at least that I've ever used. The release on this is unparalleled. Less stays on your paper, more ends up on your substrate. It's really that simple, and it really does work. I've been astounded by it, and the customers that I've shared it with thank me for it. You will also need shrink wrap. We'll go through the process of looking at exactly how this is used, but this will be how we get the pressure on our glass item. You will definitely want some kind of thick gloves to use. You'll notice these are thicker than the ones I usually use. That's because this glass is going to be hot, and I'm going to need to handle it while it's hot. Even with these thick rubber gloves, I can still feel the heat a little bit. With my normal gloves, I'd be burning myself for sure. Also, and this one's a bit optional, but for the best results, some kind of a microfiber cloth that you can use to make sure that there are no fingerprints or any other blemishes on the glass before you put your image on. All right, well, let's just do that right away, shall we? Just go in with the microfiber cloth and make sure that we get as clean a surface as we can to apply it to. Now, these are actually both older samples that we've had lying around here, but that makes it even more important to use the fiber cloth to get it set. After that, it's really a matter of application of your image. Let's get those lids off because those won't be going into the oven. Grip it by a place where you're not going to be sublimating. and get your image on there centered in a way that you're happy with. All right, touching it from the inside is no problem. And you'll actually have an easier time sort of getting a sense of what your placement looks like by looking inside. Once you're happy with how you've got it situated, a couple of pieces of tape will do you. Now, this is one of those things where I've been having debates with people online about the amount of tape that you use. My experience suggests that is all the tape you need. And in fact, that's more than I normally use. Okay, now that we have got our images taped on, the next step is really straightforward. We grab an appropriately sized piece of shrink wrap. Now, we have a wide variety here at Joto of shrink wraps that are for a wide variety of products. Do investigate which shrink wrap is appropriate for the one that you're making. Slip those on. Now, this is actually the perfect sizing for something like this. Only a little bit of slack here. But if it were more, it actually wouldn't matter that much. The shrink wrap, well, shrinks. And as a result, it's, well, just not that important that it be a perfect fit. You'll notice that it's quite a bit bigger, both on the top and the bottom. That's also appropriate and just fine. In fact, you want a little bit because it will shrink this way as well, and you want to make sure that your image is well and truly snug to the final product. So after those have been slipped over, the next step is also very straightforward, but might seem complicated to somebody who hasn't done it before. So let's take a look at it. This is a heat gun. Heat gun brand heat gun. You can find it on our website. Any old heat gun will do. I have tried a hair dryer. It just doesn't work. Making sure that your glass is as centered as it can possibly be. You turn this on. I like to start on the side opposite my image, but it's really not important one way or the other. And you just run it back and forth. Now, once you've got it sort of all the way shrunk around, you're going to want to look at it more closely and see if you've got any wrinkles or imperfections as you go around, particularly over top the area where your image is. That's going to be the most important. In that area, I would go in and make good and sure I've got the tightest, cleanest shrink I possibly can, so that I have maximized the pressure. And then I'll do the same on the other. Now it's time to get it into the oven. And before I put it into the oven, there is one other way we could do this without using the shrink wrap. If we had our images appropriately sized, something like one of these Hicks wraps would do the trick. Now, these are quite expensive, but they are incredibly durable, and the only thing that would ever break on them is the silicone. So once you bought a set of these, the only thing you ever replace is the silicone. The other great thing about them, they are adjustable in size. So you just adjust this to the proper size of the glass or whatever other drinkware you're using. The only thing you have to worry about is whether or not this is going to be the right thickness to completely cover over your illustration, your design. If it isn't, well, I'm afraid shrink wrap is going to be your only other option. So I'm going to be putting this in at 375 for 10 minutes. Now, the way I like to do this is, my timer is already started, you may have noticed, but that's not a problem. The temperature is correct. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open this up, put these in properly, closing it gently. Oops, that's going to be too tall, so onto its side it goes, but you don't want them touching, and they're not. pausing this, back up to 10 minutes, press the button again, and now your timer will start again for the proper amount of time at the proper temperature. We'll see you when these are ready. Here we go. So we open it up. I'm not going to be doing any more after this, so I'm just going to close it up and leave it instead of charging it back up. So, next step, of course, is removing the plastic shrink wrap. The way I do that is like so. I'm going to need another glove to get that. It is easier to take it off hot than to wait and take it off cold. And for this next one, I think I'm going to do it the easiest possible way. Clip, clip. And this one has a zipper that makes it super easy, and it makes it come right off. Boy, that was a lot easier. Next, going over the paper, I go in and get that tape and pull. Ooh, that's going to look good. All right, doing the same thing here from the paper side so that I don't scratch my substrate. I get the tape, pull it off, get the loose paper, and pull. And oh, pretty happy with the results there. So why do I get these results? The answer is twofold. As I mentioned earlier, the Parapy Premium Sublimation paper is the best release paper on the market right now. And as a result, you will get deeper, more vibrant images out of it than you'll get out of any other sublimation paper today. But of course, the other reason is our pearl coating. At Joto, we use pearl coat on all of our drinkware, and in fact, on all of our sublimation items. And that coating, I also consider to be the best on the market. I'll take the Pepsi challenge with anybody, but I think the results speak for themselves. If you have questions about this sort of thing, please put your questions in the comments. We love to get them. We're happy to help walk you through your process and what you might be able to do your own sublimation better. If you like this kind of content, please hit the like button. If you really like it, subscribe, tell your friends, and until next time, thank you and happy sublimating.